and welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a really simple basic recipe for you. This is banana bread. Just about everyone I know has some bananas in their freezer in the expectation that one day they will turn it into banana bread. Well, that day is today. Let's make some banana bread, get rid of those frozen bananas because they'll just sit in there forever. And here's our ingredients. So obviously we have some frozen bananas. We're also going to have some butter, some vanilla, some eggs, a little bit of sour cream, flour, baking soda, baking powder, some salt, and some sugar. So this recipe is pretty forgiving as far as how much you can use in the way of banana. The proportions we're using, all the amounts are going to be in the description below, as usual. The proportions we're using asked for about 500 grams, of about half a kilo of bananas. And these bananas, we had 5 of them, and they were about 100 grams a piece once we peeled them. And if it's a little over, that's fine. This recipe can handle a little bit of extra banana. Basically, it will just become a little bit more moist. So we're going to start by getting our pans all ready, because once we get the mixture together, it shouldn't sit around too long. Once it's ready, we want to get it in those pans and in the oven as fast as we can. And you do want to make sure that you've got a really good even coating of that of the butter in the bottom of your pans. And we're going to make a few little mini loaves as well. This is a fun way to make some variations on your banana bread as well. So what we're going to do is make some that are plain, and then we're going to add some stir-ins for some of these as well. So we're going to have some chocolate chips and some score toffee chips and a little blend of the two and some pecans. You know, whatever you like, you can add into your banana bread. It is a little tricky to flour a bunch of pans like this at once, but just make sure you've got a good coating on everything. And then all of your extra flour, you can just toss into the large pan. So the recipe we're using is good for those 8 little mini loaves and 1 full-size loaf. So once you've got that nice flour coating on everything, you want to make sure there's no gaps or anything. Let's get everything started. So we are going to get our butter and sugar blended together. So we're just going to cream these together until they're nice and fluffy. And while that's going, we're going to start getting our dry ingredients together. So we'll let that cream for a little while. And then we're going to combine the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt into the flour. You could also add the salt to the sugar and butter if you want. Really, that's up to you. And then we're just going to mix that together and make sure it's well combined. And then we're going to get our eggs ready. And what we want to do is, we're going to start with our bananas. So we're just going to mush these bananas up a little bit. Now, they've been frozen previously, so they are obviously going to be very soft. You see a lot of liquid coming out of them already. So we just want to break them up a little bit and make it easier for the mixer. So we're just going to stir it up a little bit until they're just sort of a little more mushy. That's about all we need to do with those. And then we are going to crack our eggs into a bowl. This way we can add them sort of one at a time without having to worry if we're getting shell in there. We're just going to toss them in one at a time. And if we see any shell, that just makes it easier to take it out. So once our butter and sugar is well combined and all nicely creamed together, we're just going to scrape down the sides, make sure there's no lumps of butter or pockets of sugar or anything. There don't appear to be, but always scrape down the sides of your mixer. And then one at a time, we're going to start adding in those eggs. Now, the first time we actually accidentally added 2, which is fine. You can see they combine quite slowly. It looks like they're not going to go for a little while. And then suddenly they start mixing in really, really well. And you just want to give them time to combine into the mixture before you start adding the next one. So there we go. We've got our eggs all added in. Again, you just want to scrape down the sides. You can see the color and the texture has changed quite a lot. And here's a great reason why we scrape down the side. You see some lumps in there that are just not combined yet. So we've got our last egg. We're just going to toss that in. And off we go. We're just going to get that last one mixed in. And then once that has been fully incorporated, there's no obvious yolk or anything outside of the mixture, it's time to start adding some more of our liquid ingredients. So in next is going to go the sour cream. And then after the sour cream, we are going to toss in our banana. Now this is the part of the recipe that starts to look a little odd. Don't worry, it's going to look curdled once you start combining these ingredients together. So that mixture of sugar and butter and eggs and sour cream and the banana together does take on a kind of a curdled look, but don't worry, it just looks that way. It's fine, and once you add the flour, everything's going to come back together. Don't worry about it. So we're just going to mix that on sort of a medium or medium-low speed until it's all really well combined. Now's a great time to add the vanilla as well. And you can see in the bowl, it has that curdled look. The sour cream mixing with the banana, it does look like it's not mixing properly, and it gives you that sort of curdled look. Again, don't worry, at this point, it's going to look that way. So we're going to scrape down the sides. You can see there's some big chunks of banana that just haven't been incorporated yet. So this is part of why we wanted to sort of mash them up at the beginning. So we're just going to scrape everything off of our paddle, and now we can add the flour. And this will help to bring everything together. So we're just going to toss all the flour in. You can do this in stages if you prefer. We just add it all at once, and we're just a little cautious. So instead of turning it all the way up and getting a big cloud of flour, we're just going to add. We're just going to pulse it slowly to start, and that will just help it combine slowly, and it stops you from getting the big puff of flour in your face when you turn your mixer on. And I'm going to show you the whole mixing process because honestly, it doesn't take very long. This is one of those recipes where you don't want to overmix. You don't want to make too much gluten in here. Otherwise, your banana bread will come out tough and kind of dry. So you really just want to go until it is combined, which you can see here, it now is. Before we stop, of course, we're going to scrape down the sides again. We want to make sure there's no lumps of flour, which there are. We did come across a couple when we stirred this up. So just make sure you scrape down the sides and give it a last few pulses in your mixer until it's combined and you don't see any lumps of flour or anything in there. And you're done. That's it. That's all you have to do as far as mixing it, and you're all ready to go. So from here, we're just going to pop that into our containers. Now, do keep in mind this recipe will rise quite a bit. They do puff up. So you want to give yourself a little bit of room. Don't go much further than about 2/3 of the way up the sides of your baking container. Now, obviously, these are going to be different sizes, and they are going to be completely different cooking times. And banana bread is tricky. You want to cook it until it's done. You want to make sure that it's all well baked and knife comes out clean. And we're going to do a couple stir-ins. So we've got some chocolate chips. We've got some toffee chips as well. So we're going to do some that are just chocolate chips. We're going to do some that are just toffee chips and some that are both. And also just a plain one as well at the end. And then in our big pan, we're going to do toffee chips and chocolate chips. And then we're just going to give this a little mix in. So we've got just a toothpick or a skewer is fine. You just want to give it a little stir. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you're not scraping the bottom. You don't want to disturb the butter and flour that you've put on the sides of the dish. Otherwise, it will make it harder to get these out once you're all done. So just give it a gentle stir and try not to scrape the bottom or the sides. Now, this whole mixture is going to sort of bubble up around these ingredients, so you don't have to worry. They're all going to incorporate very nicely into the banana bread as it bakes. And for the large one, we're actually going to add a few little pecan halves on top as well, just because why not? It goes really well with this recipe. And this is a really good example of how the banana bread kind of rises up over the side. We'll show you in just a moment. So once that's ready to go, don't waste any time. Once it's ready, into the preheated oven it goes. And again, as I said, the stuff in the little mini loaf pan is going to go much faster. And you can see already the mixture has come up over the pecans and kind of pushed them towards the middle. That's just fine. And what we want to do is also make sure that the part of the baking sheet that's on the inside is on the outside once we've rotated everything, so that it gets nice even heat. So we're just going to take the mini loaf pan out and see you've got great color on top already, so that looks fantastic. We're just going to test to see in one of these larger ones if it's ready to come out yet. So a knife comes out good and clean. These are ready to go, so we're just going to set these aside and let the big loaf cook a little bit longer. You can see that great color on there. And once they've had some time to cool, they can still be warm when you do this, but you want to make sure that they're not hot anymore. So do give them a little bit of time to cool and rest before you try and remove them from the pan. And just run a knife around the outside just to make sure that they're not going to stick too badly. And if you've done the butter and flour well enough, they'll just pop out like this. So they should be pretty easy to get out. As you can see, the ones on the outside got a little bit more heat, so they got a little more color, and the ones on the inside are a little paler. They're all cooked, though. They all came out perfectly cooked all the way through. They were just fine. Now, the pecans on the top of this one have completely disappeared. They actually are in the middle of the banana bread at this point, which is fine. It's they turned out delicious in there. But it takes a lot more time for this much banana bread. So just don't rush it. You don't want to undercook it for sure. We're going to have suggested cooking times in the bottom, but you really want to make sure that you're going until it's cooked. So if you get to the end of our suggested cooking time and it's still not done with a knife coming out clean, then by all means add another 10 minutes and check it again. And there you go. So that comes out nice and clean. This is done. So we'll treat this the same as we did the little mini loaf, and then we'll just cut one of these open because they look and smell delicious. And then you cut it open and you've got that nice classic moist banana bread texture. It's nice and lofty. It got a lot of air bubbles from the leavening in there, and they came out really delicious. I think my favorite was the one with just the score toffee chips. Absolutely delicious. Got that nice buttery toffee flavor, and came out really nicely. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.